We got another big game this week in Pittsburgh, and it's with the PITT Panthers. They keep rolling with the freshman quarterback, Mason Baker Mayfield Heintschel. Because I think this guy just reminds me of Baker Mayfield. Just like him, though. But we'd like to welcome in a top 10 leading man from MSN, Mr. Harry PITT GURU Psaros. What's going on, sir? Thank you for joining us here in the Burgh Cave, man.
How we doing, fellas? I was at the last Steeler game. I consumed a lot of bourbon and to kill the pain. So I had PTSD the second I saw you guys all blitzed out in black and gold. But it'll be an interesting game. But no, it's really good to be here. And yeah, it was an amazing week. Quite an honor that MSN gave me and gave me national recognition. So. Luck, we goes hand in hand with my book, but it was an amazing week. And thank you. That was nice to put that up.
Look at that mugshot. You mean business, bro? I love it.
I'm telling you, I got to be a male model, man. I think it's time. But shout out to Ashley Faye, who's an amazing photographer. She did that for me. But I'm trying to make a significant impact nationally with the autism community, and the editors at MSN told me I might be involved in an end of year article. I didn't know in what context. It's humbling to say the least, and my phone's been blowing up, and I've been actually asked to be on some like 2 or 3 podcasts, maybe more, since that's come up. They've been getting a hold of me, so it's been pretty exciting.
I know that J.J. Watt and Dominican Sue got the award too. I mean, these two guys look like them over here, you know?
Yeah, they just want to add another physical specimen in with the rest of them, so it worked out well. But no, it's good to be here, and so obviously it's an interesting time, and I feel like this has been the most fascinating season for Pitt, and this game. I'd like to talk about the bigger narrative first, and we'll get into statistics that'll prove where I'm going. But so on paper, Pitt should absolutely eviscerate Stanford. Stanford is not a good team, but let me add to this. So they're 3-5 for the season, 2-3 in the ACC. They beat BC and they beat Florida State, 2 teams Pitt fans are very familiar with. BC is abysmal. What Bill O'Brien is doing, I have no clue. They lost to UConn. Pitt annihilated them, and then they did beat Florida State. That's an anomaly to me. Florida State has talent, but I think they quit on their coach. So they had beat those 2 teams, but they are 3-0 at home, and I think some of that is the West Coast travel. There has to be a lag. I mean, look, they beat 2 bad teams, but I think that factors in. So one of my first tweets this week was this could be the proverbial trap game for Pitt. You've skyrocketed up. You won, you've won 4 games in a row. Mason Heintschel right now is the single hottest quarterback in the nation, if not one of them. And when I put that out, I had a lot of the geniuses on Twitter go, but Harry, they stink. And I'm like, you're missing the point. That's why it's called a trap game. That's the definition of a trap game. So I will say this, I was really refreshing to hear some of the players interviewed, in particular Mason. His maturity is unreal. Keeping a really level mind, keeping a 1-0 mindset. We're going in for the next win. But like I said, I think it's imperative that they come in with that mindset that it is one game at a time. And it would be, and right now they're skyrocketing. So to lose this game would be abysmal. But shout out to Max Brown, who's a former Pitt quarterback, who's once the #1 quarterback in the nation. He's going to be an analyst on the ACC network for this game. Nate Byam, who's once the #1 tight end in the nation, that was recruited by Dave Wanstead, who's a stud. He's the offensive coordinator, so we got a little bit. In fact, it sounds like Donald Trump named the coordinator position. It's called Director of Offense. I had to do a double take when I
Director of Offense.
So let me say this. So let's go big picture first. Offensively, this team, quite frankly, is abysmal. There's no other way to put it. So total offense nationally, they're ranked 124th. Pitt is ranked 42nd, okay? Scoring, they're ranked 125th. Pitt is ranked 8th. So on paper, again, decisive advantage for the Panthers. Ben Gulbranson, their quarterback, is okay, not great. Has a tendency, he's thrown almost as many interceptions as touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 8 touchdowns for the season. So this isn't a guy at all that's lighting it up. Mike, their strength probably is a running back, Michael Ford, and then they have a freshman, Cole Tab, that I've seen, which sounds like, by the way, a great energy drink. But, you know, I want to go back to good, but not great. But I would say if they have a strength, it would be running back. C.J. Williams is their leading receiver, but he's not lighting it up at all. 40 receptions for the season. So statistically, they're really bad. And I felt bad. I actually was in communication. I know one guy does a podcast for Stanford. He didn't know what to cover for the last Miami game. They had like 1 touchdown, I think. I think they were blown away by like 40 points. So defensively, Stanford's defense, I hate to even call it solid. It's not. It's below average, but they have their moments. So when we're looking at total defense, Stanford is 114th in the nation. Pitt is 27th. Total points allowed, Stanford is 98th. Pitt is 49th. So again, looking at it statistically, both offensively, defensively, this should be a layup. If they continue to play the way they're playing. Now, obviously, there have been some significant injuries. Probably the player of note to keep an eye on is Kenny Johnson. Kenny didn't play the second half of last game. Zion Fowler L, who's a freak athlete. He's really good. There's depth at receiver, but Kenny Johnson is special. I think we would all agree with that.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of seeing if he'll be playing. And I'm dues is so tight with showing who's playing, who's not playing. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say if the linebackers are going to be coming back and who's going to be playing.
Yeah, I was going to ask. We're getting Lewis and and Biles back. I mean, that would actually, I think, take care of a trap game, if you will, because I think they'd be fired up to get back on the field and and get this win, because there's a bye week next week, so they get to kind of one more for a bye week before they hit that that gauntlet of 3 games.
Yeah, yeah.
So are we hearing anything on those linebackers?
I tried today. I knew I'd be coming on. I was trying to press, and they are really, really tight-lipped. Although, let me say, Aliquippa was in the house last week. Cam Lindsey, was a difference maker. He forced the turnover, I feel, that kind of broke it. At least got NC State's head. To me, it seemed like a game changer. He was all over the field. So, Pitt's linebacker depth took a big hit preseason. They lost 2 players, and now obviously, hopefully, they're not down both players heading into this. You're not going to know until game day. Dues is really tight about that. I think you're right. With those 2 on the field, I can't see Stanford doing much, because again, they're really, everything's predicated on their run game, and the run game isn't even great. And you add those 2, I think they'd be really fired up. So the guru prediction, if I can give it to you, this should be a 21-point plus win. It really should be on paper. We'll see what happens. They have not played each other, the 2 teams, I think since 1920, something odd like that. I saw some stat. Damn. It's been a long time, put it that way. So, there you go. I mean, this isn't like a massive chess match where we can sit and analyze.
Yeah.
This is a team that might be one of the hottest in the nation right now, with a team that's significantly struggling. I give Frank Gray credit. He's doing what he can to keep it. He's the interim coach right now to keep it together. A very odd situation there where Troy Taylor, I think, was the original coach, went in and he was ousted. I don't know why or what the specifics were. I know they had a really bad season last year. So it'll be. I'm anxious to see what they do, and but I think this should be win number 5, and then we prep and get ready for Notre Dame.
Harry, you mentioned this could be a potential trap game. I find it interesting. Stanford is 3-5. Okay, do you know what the record is at home?
3-0.
3-0.
3-0. Yeah,
and they're 0-5 at away. So it's obvious that they obviously play better on the road. I mean, at home than on the road. And then when you have the East Coast going to the West Coast, that's always, that 3-hour difference is still something. They kind of made it okay, though, because it's a 3:30 game. You know what I mean? As opposed to a night game, or anything like that. So that's a good thing. But I think you may be onto something about this being a potential trap game. I kind of see it being a little different, where it could be a little, BVDs get a little tight, and they take us into deep water a little bit, just because of the all the other things, notwithstanding, not the Jimmys and Joes, but everything else, the shenanigans that we call it, right? The shenanigans that come with the game sometimes. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out. And I looked at the stat and I said, wow, this team it's a complete night and day. It's a Jekyll and Hyde team, right? So
I could tell you. So my company, my primary profession, or headquarters is in Irvine, California. It's stunningly beautiful. But when we go out, it takes me a full day to really assimilate, calm down. So I think, if I'm correct, they flew out today.
good.
It'll definitely behoove them to have 24 hours before the game to kind of
Yes.
get in sync.
Yes.
So, but I had to laugh. Like I said, that was the first tweet of the week was, hey, it scares me this could be a trap game. And then I had every genius on X let me know how bad Stanford was. And I'm like, that's the definition of a trap game. So I don't know what to do. They're calling me the idiot, but I was so, so yeah, it'll be interesting. I still, my gut says to me, when you look at the teams they beat, though, they don't have the firepower right now Pitt has. So, right. That's where I still think, and I don't care if it's by a point, I still think they win. But I like I said, I think Dews will have them ready for this. It'll be interesting.
So I got what about, and I know Dews has been and always will be tight-lipped on that. What have you heard about Des Reed? It's still his ankle. Like is that more of the high ankle sprain or whatever he had earlier on in the year? He comes back and then, he goes out, but he comes back. Obviously he's a tough kid, or would you, if he can play, are you limiting his snaps so he's fully healthy for Notre Dame?
Yeah, if you're asking me, I would. If we were playing a far more formidable team, I might consider trying to throw him in. Boozy Turner is a younger version of him, in my opinion. I mean, I maybe not as explosive. We'll see. So I think you could get away. What I would really do is, even if he was prepped and ready, I would hold out and see how they go. I mean, if you get up by 14, whatever, just leave him on the sideline.
Yeah.
You have 3 murderous games after that on your schedule. I feel I'm actually anxious, where before I thought, I was in a fetal position. I thought this isn't going to be good. I mean, with the way we looked at the beginning of the season. Now I'm curious to see if we have a shot, with any of those 3 teams. And I'm hoping Miami pulls a Miami and just falls asleep. Crystal Ball's teams are known to do that, So, but no, you're asking me, I would be hesitant to play him, especially if he's not even close to 100%.
I would agree. Is there a third back, though? So if he doesn't, obviously you're going to go with Turner, going to go back to Joel's Goff. Is there like a third back that you see that could possibly get some PT? Again, the more guys that you play right now that you can is only going to benefit you when you have that 3-game gauntlet if they're called upon. Is there a guy that, he's not playing now, but he might get some time versus Stanford?
It's driving me nuts. I'll have to think of his name because he I haven't seen him this season, but they brought in he's like one of these guys that's been in college for like 7 to 8 years. He came in from East Carolina. It was a transfer. They've used him, cleanup duty a few times at the end of some of these games. From what I could tell, the kid's solid. But I think, to your point, the first 2 you mentioned, you're predominantly going to see that going on. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then I think they're going to put it. I'm sure the other thing I will say is from DMing back and forth with the podcaster from Stanford, he said he thinks they're going to try to take a page out of Syracuse's book and throw a lot of different defensive schemes, a lot of defensive looks to throw Mason off. That being said, Mason's been there, done that. He's a pretty mature kid. You know what I mean? And I actually think Syracuse has much better athletes on defense than Stanford does. So that doesn't bother me either. But yeah, like I said, I all of these questions in terms of injuries, we'll know the day of, because like I said, he's so tight-lipped. But I would love to see Dez out there, but I think he was in a boot at the end of the last game. So we'll see what happens.
That's Jalen Williams, by the way.
That's it. Thank you.
Western.
Like I knew it was a Williams. I couldn't think of his first name.
Yeah.
And he's one of these guys that's like 55. You know what I mean? Years old. You know, they brought him in. He's been there forever. But I will say the kid has some. I mean, when he's been in, he looks impressive. So if you got the bodies, use them. And what I would say too, if they're a big, even someone like Boozy, put them on the sideline. Like play your second, third, string, depending on where. I mean, we're assuming that it's going to be a blowout, but like I said, this should be an easy dub. I hope.
Hey Harry, I got a question for you. I'm going to switch gears from the Stanford game and talk a little bit about recruiting, and the reason being is because for two reasons. Well, if anybody's paying attention, they see that there are Whippio guys that are absolutely doing fantastic things. Specifically on defense, Braylon Lovelace, Cam Lindsey, Cruz Brookins, Sean Fitzsimmons, all playing at an extremely, extremely high level right now. Talk about some of the aftermath of the Penn State firing, and have there been any visits or has there been any attraction from some of the recruits that may have opened up their recruiting from Penn State, or if they just decommitted altogether? What have you seen since that firing happened?
If you isolate it down to the departures for Penn State, the one player of note that is already visited is Matt Sig, from Fort Cherry, who is an exceptionally talented player. I think there was a lot of buzz this week because he posted the photos in the Pitt uniform and everything. Like not that he's committed. He, I know he visited Indiana, and I believe he's visiting Notre Dame. I'd have to look at that third visit. Let me say this. I don't want to speak for the staff, but I believe that Narduzzi believes in NIL as an incentive. So in other words, if you're Mason, let's say this in the offseason, Mason's going to get paid because why? He produced. So, some of these schools are fronting NIL money to very talented freshmen. I don't believe Pitt is active in doing so. Now, the reason I'm saying that, I would hope that Matt Sig would consider the hometown team. He would, you look at what's happened with Cruz Brookins and all these like Lovelace and all these other players, they're hometown heroes. They always will be. You hope that narrative resonates. Now, what you might have to separate is a team like Notre Dame or even Indiana that just invested 11 plus million a year in their coach might cough up a lot of money for a player like Matt. In that case, I don't know if again we're in the age of NIL that could factor in. So of all the people that have decommitted from Penn State. Now the other thing to factor in, Narduzzi and staff are like, they're huge in June. June, they do this every year. They land a massive and talented class. And it's showing. You look at this freshman class. I don't know how you argue that they haven't brought in talent. But every year there's always, the guarantee is there's some attrition. There's a kid that falls in love with Pitt. I love Pitt. Then he realizes, wait a minute, I committed in June. And I have all these other schools looking at me. Maybe I need to go look. And Narduzzi hates kids that look elsewhere and travel. If they go to visit elsewhere, normally they're gone. Sometimes they're just cleaned up and cut ties because you want guys that are all in. So that has not happened. They actually they haven't signed yet, but all the verbal commits that are there, it's actually one of Narduzzi's best overall recruiting classes. And there's not a lot of room to breathe. So I think what's happening now, they want the local guy that's a stud, but you haven't seen a slew of offers go out to all those other decommits. And I think what's happening is the momentum that's occurred because of Mason Heintschel. Again, Eric and I were on with JJ Kitchen on his great podcast. It was a funeral after the Louisville game. We were eulogizing Deuce's future, and I mean, it was looking ugly, and I can't believe where we're at right now. So I think that momentum, that excitement, in fact, I think one of the polls had Pitt ranked 24th overall this week. I think that has really, really resonated. And I haven't like you wait every year for like 2 to 3 kids that might run elsewhere.
Yeah.
And that hasn't happened. So I think that's why you're not seeing him trying to pounce on every single. I saw like a team like West Virginia locally has offered more than Pitt, but that's because West Virginia's cupboard's a bit more bare and they're trying to bring in a little more talent. So we'll see what happens with that. But again, too, more of those offers may come when we have the break after the Stanford game, and they're going to be out visiting kids, and you might see a few more. But like I said, right now, Matt Sigg seems to be the primary focus, as he should be. He could play a number of positions. I think he'd be a phenomenal safety. I think on the next level, I think he'd be an outstanding safety. So I'm really hoping that message resonated. He did say that he and his parents got a different feel and look for Pitt. Got a better feel for campus, things like that. But he would be a huge pickup for staff, and the message to me should be look at the players that go to the NFL and how they produce. And we're talking the local player right now. There's a lot. GB just mentioned that whole list. A lot of those guys are going to be playing on Sundays.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
If you want to be the one thing I will do's and the staff consistently, they develop players. That's a major narrative. And if I'm Matt Sigg and I want to really make it to the NFL, you have just as good a shot at Pitt as you do anywhere.
I would agree.
And when you have a 6-time Super Bowl champion right next to you, the other thing I try to tell these recruits that ask me, you have a lot of scouts that are coming in and out, and they always hop over and check out Pitt. So you have extra eyeballs on you. So, but like I said, I think you might see a little more movement with that next week when they're off. But right now, Matt Sigg is the main guy they're after.
Yeah. One of the coolest things I saw on social media this past week was Mr. Dwight Lindsay, Cam's father, offer to other parents, his experience about the Pitt experience. He said, look, man, anybody have any questions about Pitt and what's going on and everything? He said, I'll be more than happy to let you know. And and if you follow him on X, he gives a lot of credence and kudos to a lot of other campuses and a lot of other schools that did right by Cam, even though he didn't choose that particular school. He talks about that. He talks about West Virginia, how they take care of you. He talks about that. But I think that's something I've never seen before, and I don't know if it's because of the social media era or whatever, but I found that to be something very, very, very interesting, and that's just a different type of feel when it comes to culture. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know a lot of parents out here, like it's kids usually out here, trying to get their friends or whoever to come but when you have a parent that's actually testifying, saying, hey, let me tell you what my experience has been with the staff, with the campus, with the education, with everything, so that I can help you guys, make a decision. Speak on that for a second, man, about the culture that Coach Narduzzi has built.
People have called me a Narduzzi apologist, but I was at Pitt at an interesting time. So it was the second time Johnny Majors came back, and it was abysmal to say the least. I was at the Ohio State game when Pitt lost, I want to say upwards of 60 points. It might have been worse. I was
there too, buddy.
And that was the death knell for Coach Majors. But so I've been through that. I've been through the stain of Todd Graham and the second Steve Peterson era. So what I've always appreciated, Pitt fans are myopic at times in their thinking and a bit fatalistic with their thinking. So I know Coach Narduzzi isn't perfect, but first of all, before he came, the program was in chaos. You had the unceremonious removal of Dave Wanstead. That was humiliating. We wouldn't even pay for carpet for him at the Southside facility. You had Steve Peterson humiliate the pro. I mean, I can go on and on. So what Narduzzi has brought first is stability. He's brought a brand. It's you're going to get a tough blue collar team. Sometimes they fall asleep, but that's what you're getting. But he has brought a phenomenal family culture to the program. I hate to even bring this up, but we lost a great Pitt father this week, William Gonzalez, whose son, Matt, I was the first one to interview Matt, first one to interview his coach. talked to his wonderful family. I'm still stunned that he's gone. And his father was indicative of like a Dwight Lindsay. Loved the program, loved what they were doing, was willing to tell anybody about it. And condolences to his family. Matt starts for the Colts, ironically. So I'm assuming he'll be there on Sunday playing for his father with a lot of passion too. But he's developed a brand. So obviously I'm an author and I just got this great recognition. I've been dealing with national people who are thought leaders on marketing. Every one of the three of you are a brand. Each of it, you know what I mean? And he's done a great job of developing that. And I'm not saying he's flawless, but he's retained a lot of coaches. He's very rarely do you have a lot of people that dislike him and just leave the program. Usually it's a playing time issue. And like I said, and what Mr. Lindsay did, I'm not shocked because his son's having a great experience. He wants to talk to people about that. And I think, too, Pitt's in a weird and unique situation, and I think you guys might agree with this, that there aren't a lot of people that are profusely positive about the program. I think it's easy radio fodder, podcast fodder, to just start going ultra negative. We saw this even recently with the turf issue. And I don't know how many people on Twitter I basically told them, kiss my ass. They have a grounds crew. Do your damn job. Shut up. It's not Pitt's fault. Pitt's fault is to go, dudes in the stat, they just want to go kick ass on the field. And, and I went off on a few senior writers this week, but going back to the point is I do love what he's created. I mean, he's been there, this is 11th year, I believe, 11th year at the program. And, what's interesting is you look at some of these coaches that are head coaches now that are getting fired. And you look at Brian Kelly's probably the best example. You have a Northeast guy who happens to be an asshole, and you're bringing him down to LSU, right? And what's the first thing he does? He's out in the middle of the basketball court, and he starts throwing a Southern hayseed accent on, and I'm like, dude, come on. I mean, it's just, and let me say this, and maybe if I get yelled at for this, I understand this, but even when Todd Graham was brought in, and Todd Graham knew that Pitt was in a bad position, forced them to up the ante on his base salary, comes in, and when I heard that like quick Southern accent, he sounded like a Baptist preacher, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting speed, and I'm like, ooh, so go to point being is you have a guy from Youngstown, from gritty Youngstown, who knows and understands the Pittsburgh blue collar mentality when they brought him in. And it was funny. I kept thinking, God, he'd be great for Pitt. He'd be great for Pitt. And then when I heard he was interviewing, and to his point, and I've been in sales. I mean, he walked in, he looked at the interim AD at the time and said, I want this job. That was the first thing he said. And he had turned down 2 to 3 jobs prior to that. Point being, you have a guy from the region. You have a guy that's gritty, Italian, blue collar from that area, understood the area, understood that we have to try to keep as many athletes as we can home. Again, some of the foibles there, I mean, people have gone back and said, why didn't he bring in like Terry Smith? At the time, I don't know what was going on there. Bob Palco would have been great. I was just with Bob last Friday at the West A game. Bob would have been great. I still have, I love Bob. But, overall, he was a great fit, a great cultural fit. And that's why I think some of these, I think it's okay to always go, a lot of these teams go with the hot coach, but they don't look at the culture and if they're a mesh. And some of these coaches just like peter out, So in this day and age, you're seeing a lot of like Saban types that are like, I'm out. I can't handle this NIL, blah, 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 blah. He's not young, but he's not in the geriatric home either yet. And he's really transitioned well. And I think now that we have an AD in place that gets it, Alan Green's going to be, I think, a great athletic director for Pitt. And he understands that the front porch is football, to a little bit lesser extent basketball. And they're on a real roll there. They're 4th in the nation with their recruiting class. But, I appreciate that he's not like a 30-year-old coach, but he's like a Marcus Freeman. But he's transitioning into the NIL era with a little bit of grace and understanding what they need to do, So 100%. I'll probably get beat up on Twitter. I understand his foibles. I do. But and I was telling Eric this story. We went to the recruiting meeting the one time. I'll never forget this. And he comes up to me. Deuce comes up to me and goes, "You're going to wait right there. I want to get a photo." I go, "For what?" And he grabs his wife and he goes, "My wife's your biggest fan." And we end up taking a photo. It was so fun. It was great. He did it in front of my son Max and his friend, and it was hilarious. But like I said, whether it ends next year, the year after, I'll probably do like a vlog myself with so many different thoughts, because I think Pitt fans need to understand. I think they owe a lot to Pat Narduzzi. They really do. 11 years, and because all you have to do is look at the even 5-year slice prior to when he came, and it's like, holy hell, it was that bad. It was. I mean, we were absolutely, in particular when Graham left to go to Arizona State. I don't know if you remember. I think he sent like one text message in Bolton.
Sent a text. Yeah.
Side note, and I did not figure this out. His wife, Penny, and I are still friends on Facebook. I should say ex-wife. I want to make sure to specify that. But I might be one of the few Pitt fans that are still remaining friends with her. Somehow we're still friends. But I will say this, we were a laughing stock. I remember my friends that are Penn Staters, and Eric and I are surrounded here in the area by a lot of them. We have a lot of friends that are PSU guys. They were laughing at us because we were basically thrown away like a piece of trash, Yeah. So, like I said, I think perspective in life is critical. And if you look at the decade before he came, the decade after, I'll take the Deuce era anytime with its warts. And I understand, like I said, there's always those stupid, damnable losses to a team you shouldn't lose to. And that's why this upcoming game scares me. But I'm a Pat Narduzzi guy, and I think he's done a lot for the program.
Yeah. So, Harry, always, man, appreciate your time with other stuff, man. And real quick before we let you go, as well, you talked about those stupid losses, things like that. So we're thinking a W this Saturday.
Absolutely.
What's your final prediction? Let's go around the horn, give a Pitt prediction, and we'll go from there. We'll start with you, Harry.
Okay, I'm going to say 45-10.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah.
I can't argue with that.
I'm going big.
Mr. Wonderful, you've been listening, observing all the Pitt talk, man. I know you're a fan. Maybe not as engaged as all of us, but I know you're a fan. But what do you think Pitt's going to do Saturday?
That's funny. My score was going to be actually 42-17. This is kind of close to that.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, garbage touchdown at the end for Stanford, right?
Yeah.
BB.
Hey, let me share a story real quick. Harry, you talked about that Johnny Majors era in the Ohio State game. I, too, was at that Ohio State game. And Mr. Wonderful and Dudek, you could appreciate this. That was the same day that we lost. We were in film, and we lost to Derry. And my dad was waiting to come and get me, and I had to tell the coach. I had to tell Coach A that I had to leave. And it was right at the time when he waved at you. He waved. It was right at that time. And my dad was, and I was like, and I was looking at the clock. I'm like, oh, shoot, my dad's outside. I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do? I'm a 10th grader, bro. Like, I was scared to death to even put my hand up and like, excuse me.
I got to leave
now.
I got to go. Yeah. Harry, a story about that is like, that was one of the worst games. Probably one, I think you and I graduated together. Probably the worst game we were part of in our high school career. The Derry area, there was a beatdown where a guy was waving at our players scoring touchdowns, and it was one of those uncomfortable film sessions. And now I kind of remember that, GB, but yeah, that was a bad all around.
Oh my goodness,
proverbial bad all around weekend.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I agree.
But I'm gonna say, as far as the score is concerned, I think Stanford's going to keep it close, at least in the first half, and then I think we'll pull away in the second half. Pitt averages 40 points a game. I think that Stanford's not going to be able to stop that, right? So I'm going to say Pitt 48, Stanford 27.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that same way. I do think the shenanigans keeps it close, and I think it's just another feather in the maturity cap of Mason to where he's not he's unflappable in a sense so far, right? Throws a couple of bad interceptions against Syracuse. He had a couple of bad plays, in the first half, but he comes back. It seems like when he throws those couple of picks or so, I think he did that twice now, or at least twice where he threw a pick in the first half. Come back and just lights it up in the second half, and I do think Pitt pulls away, and I do like a 45-24 type game, but I think it's close. I think that pull away is more in the mid to the fourth quarter. I think by mid fourth quarter, you'll start seeing the mass substitutions, and then it's a reset on for that gauntlet, which I'm going to be there for the first one. I'm getting down to that Notre Dame game. I ain't going to miss that one.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I ain't going to miss that one. So, Harry, thanks so much for hanging out here with us.
Fellas, it's been an honor. Thank you for having me on. And anytime you need me, you let me know. And hopefully we all get together and grab a beer sometime. But thank you, guys. You have a great night.
Absolutely. Before you get out of here, man, tell everybody where they can find you.
So I'm at PITT GURU, PITT GURU. I'm the original OG. I founded the first 2 sites covering Pitt recruiting back when nobody else was doing it. And again, I'm a best-selling author. My book is called From Struggle to Strength, The Father's Journey with Autism and the Power of Hope and Positivity. It's an Amazon bestseller. You can find out more at harrypsaros.com. And I'm hoping to start I like Mark's prediction as well. I'll be starting my second book here soon, but and give a shout out to Pittsburgh Sports Now. Like I said, I promote all their stuff and I'm on Twitter as well. So again, guys, thank you for having me.
Yeah, man.
Always a pleasure. The door is open every Thursday for you to hop on, man. I will talk to you soon, man.
Take care.